Guru Shri Juta Padakamalang.
Hare Krishna, welcome, and welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome to make a new acquaintance if this is the first time. Our channel is called Bhagavad-gita. Here it is, because we have Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. My name is Labanga Latika. And we have been reading Bhagavad-gita for some time. We're all up in the 9th chapter out of 18. And this chapter is called The Most Confidential Knowledge. And by reading it chapter by chapter, going through the entirety of the Bhagavad-gita, we're building a firm foundation for our spiritual life. And I'm reading text 14, which also is one of the core verses if one happens to like to study the Bhagavad-gita by learning verses by heart. Satatang kirtayanto mang yatantascha dridhavrata namasyantascha mang bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So we are describing from past verse the mahatmas, the great souls, who are not deluded, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me, Krishna, as Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are continuing to hear about what that means. Purport. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He's always engaged in glorification of the Lord. In other words, he's not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, so this is our process of Bhakti Yoga. It is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam that it has 9 processes: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, which means Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, glorifying or chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, remembering, Padasevanam, offering service, Archanam, Vandanam, worshipping in the temple, and Vandanam, offering prayers. Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, becoming the servant, becoming the friend, and surrendering everything to Krishna. But it starts with hearing, but then it continues with glorification. We hear about Krishna, and then we remember Him. So we talk about Him, and this is done in different ways. Like we have our chanting of Krishna's name, the Hare Krishna mantra, which is done in a private way as a prayer and a meditation. And then we have, like right now, we're reading Bhagavad-gita and we're talking about Krishna's words. And then the spontaneous devotee will think of nothing else. It's just like if you work with parents who have young children, sometimes it becomes a little bit annoying because every word out of their mouth is something about their children. And yes, it's very nice that your children are eating and sleeping, but all children do that. It's not so interesting. But that love is there, and that is the perfection. This process means we take up the process as training, but in the perfected stage, the same things remain, but then they are done out of love. Because that attraction is so much there that you don't want to do anything else. Hearing of Krishna, talking about Krishna, serving Krishna. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahma Jyotir, is not described as a Mahatma in the Bhagavad-gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or human being, that is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering Him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve the ultimate end at the ultimate end, the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. And the 5 rasas, it means the different relationships. And to have that goal to always be engaged in Krishna's service, it could be like sometimes we think of religion like that, religious people all want to go to heaven after they die because it's nicer than this place. And that's true, but spiritual world is so much nicer than this place. But unless a person is very happy and very satisfied and very drawn to Krishna and the worship of Krishna and the service of Krishna and the association of Krishna, then the spiritual world is actually not a very nice place, because then everything is focused on Krishna. So this isn't just, how to say, some escapism or some way of gaining a advantage for one's own sake. It is a very natural thing for the soul to have that relationship to Krishna. And what we're doing here, when we're taking up Bhakti Yoga, when we're coming to this human form of life, or actually, this is not just Bhakti Yoga, but it's actually the goal of all religions and yogas to come to that point where we're back to who we really are in our real relationship to Krishna. The 5 transcendental rasas are the 5 relationship: friendship, parenthood, lover, I'm missing out obviously, servant, yes, and Shantaras, a relationship of neutrality where one is simply satisfied, passively seeing the Lord. Dasyam, one is attracted to serve Krishna, which is a very real relationship, which is kind of looked down upon nowadays because nobody wants to be the servant. But that relationship between servant and master, especially, maybe only, but especially in a spiritual sense, it's a very close relationship. It's very satisfying to the heart. Friendly relationship, it means that there's a sense of equality. So we all see that when we think about God, we think of him as the great God and we are all his servant. But when one loves him a little stronger and a little deeper, then one forgets that he's God. The whole spiritual world, nobody goes around thinking Krishna is God and we should worship him. But there is a natural relationship of love depending on that person's desire to love Krishna. So somebody wants to be Krishna's friend and they're out looking after the cows and they are playing and they are not thinking that Krishna is God. When some problems occur, in the spiritual world there are no problems, but when Krishna brings his spiritual world to this material world, then there would be a daily occurrence of some demon trying to kill him. So there would be an adventure and there would be some danger and everybody would simply turn to Krishna, because that would be their natural shelter. And then we have Krishna's parents. They are not only are they equal with Krishna, they are his superiors. They are telling him what to do. They are doing that out of love. He's our son, and if he doesn't learn how things work and how to be a good person, and if he doesn't eat properly, then he will suffer. Maybe he will die, and I will take care of him. That is the love. And then Madhurya Rasa, the relationship of a lover and a beloved, that is also available. And not on a material, mundane platform of lust, but as the innermost desire of the soul to connect to that Supreme Personality. So, such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord. So if we don't love Krishna, we don't want to go there. But sometimes we're we're in the middle, we're attracted to Krishna, we realize that this material world is not where we belong, so we want to build this relationship, we want to grow in our realization. So these are the methods. So in the fully realized stage, the soul feels full spiritual satisfaction by the Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing about Krishna, glorifying Krishna, remembering him, offering prayers, and so on. And in the intermediate state, it is also very satisfying to engage in the processes, but the processes are also done in order to grow and develop and unfold as a spiritual person. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired success. Yes, we speak about the regulative principles of freedom. It is not that God has made religion and made some rules and regulation in order to make life more difficult for us. No, He has given us this opportunity to take shelter of the regulative principles of freedom, so that we will be able to be unhindered by this world. We heard that in the previous verse. Those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. So this is part of Krishna's protection. Because this material world, it's like an endless ocean tossing us here and there. And when we are covered by this illusion, it's extremely difficult to see where we're going, to see what's happening. And therefore, we need some shelter. We need a shelter of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is very willing to give that to us. But it's also very, very helpful to have the shelter of a certain structure in our life, a certain lifestyle that helps to lift us up and connect us to Krishna and make it easier. So we have this fasting on Ekadashi. It sounds a little bit, how did that turn up in this verse? But Prabhupada is very careful to speak about the Bhagavad-gita in such a way that it will be easily accessible to us. And also in general, when he's doing the translation, he is also having the commentaries of the previous teachers, previous acharyas, and then often these points are brought up from even earlier. So Ekadashi, it's one day every 14 days, so it's twice a month, more or less. The 11th day of the bright moon and the 11th day of the dark moon. So that day, one can fast completely. That is recommended. Or if one is unable to fast completely, then we abstain from grains and beans. Beans and I don't know. There's a word for those kind of different kind of beans and peas, but I can't think of the English word for it. And all different forms of grains. So then twice a month. This is, Prabhupada sometimes points out, this is also good for the health, to have a little less, pressure on the digestive system. And it's especially good for spiritual life. And it sounds like many of the things, you hear them and you think, why is that so? But then when you try it, then you see how it does help to raise your spiritual consciousness. So we do that. And Krishna's appearance day, now of course this probably will not, I shouldn't say probably, I know for certain that this installment is not going to be aired the day after it's recorded. But the day after this is recorded is actually Krishna Janmashtami, it's Krishna's appearance day. And then devotees from all over the world, they gather together in Krishna's temple, singing about Krishna, worshipping him in different ways. And in that one day, it's possible to more or less forget about the material existence, the material body. There may be fasting, ending in a big feast at midnight that has first been offered to Krishna. We come together and we hear of him, we sing of him. And it's a glorious day. And it's also very helpful. So these rules, all these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. So it's not just, a religion where God wants to make it complicated, but these things are given because they are helpful. So we take them, accept them, and it makes life actually simple, because it kind of draws all the activities and all the attention to the spiritual focus. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master. And in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari, in any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. Yeah, it's interesting. We want to be humble, but the process will turn us into great souls. So then, of course, we can still be humble, because this is not reserved for any one person. Anybody who can take that shelter of Krishna's divine nature and rise above the lower nature and come back to their original position, this is very great. Not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. So that's actually the description. There are some rules, there are some regulations, but they're not meant to be a burden. They're just meant to, steady us on this path, and help us focus, and help us, free us from distractions. So if this is what we want, then it's like a gift. And if this is not what we want, then of course we're free to sidestep this and not be engaged in Krishna consciousness at all. But if we're becoming a little bit sincere in our spiritual life, then it's really good to get some guidance in what to actually do. Spiritual life is not just an idea that I think there is a God. It also means we connect, we realize, and we can go there. And we start by the Shravanam Kirtanam, and being determined and surrendering to Krishna in our lives. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Shri Guru, Shri Juta, Padakamalang